Many people begin a spiritual path under the assumption that the simple act of starting will grant them an immediate sense of mental peace. They expect that once they sit down to meditate or chant, a wave of serenity will instantly quiet the world. The actual experience is closer to a chaotic battle. Early practice often highlights just how much the mind is ruled by deeply ingrained, restless psychological habits that refuse to be stilled. The Bhakti tradition refers to this as material consciousness, a mental state that aggressively tethers a person's focus to worldly anxieties and physical distractions, even in the middle of a prayer. This clash between the quiet peace they expected and the internal noise they actually face leaves the practitioner in a state of profound psychological isolation, feeling uniquely broken in their inability to find stillness. This isolation manifests in a predictable modern pattern, the constant postponement of spiritual commitments.
Chanting your daily rounds feels heavy, so you promise yourself you'll catch up tomorrow. Delaying commitments creates a self-reinforcing trap. A missed session generates guilt. Guilt creates distraction, making the next day's commitment feel impossible. Maya, or illusion, is an active force targeting this vulnerability, applying pressure to the cycle and accelerating the mental spiral. Eventually, the mind begins to frame failure as a statistical certainty. It argues that since millions of people struggle with focus, giving up is the only logical response to a battle that can't be won. Attempting to break this self-correcting loop using only solitary willpower is a losing psychological game. Most practitioners eventually reach a threshold of total mental and physical exhaustion. Their solitary strength is simply spent, and the noise of the mind becomes completely overwhelming. Reaching this limit triggers the need for Guru Padashraya, a mechanism of taking shelter within a lineage and tradition rather than relying on the self. This shift changes the very nature of chanting. It stops being a task to be completed and becomes a desperate, broken plea, the sound of someone who has finally admitted they cannot do this alone. The total breakdown of self-reliance acts as the essential internal opening. By exhausting every personal resource, the practitioner finally creates the vacuum that divine assistance is designed to fill. Real spiritual momentum only begins when the practitioner completely abandons the idea that they can conquer their own mind through individual control. This human limitation is exactly why Lord Chaitanya established the Sankirtana movement. It was designed as a collective infrastructure for the mind that is too overwhelmed to succeed in isolation. The movement functions on the principle of causeless mercy, meaning it provides support regardless of the practitioner's initial level of focus or purity. Moving from a quiet, solitary room into a loud, congregational setting externalizes the effort. The physical sound of the group chanting together provides a rhythmic anchor that overrides the internal voices of doubt. In this setting, the burden of maintaining focus is shared. The collective energy absorbs individual weakness and sustains those who falter. Sankirtana converts the isolated struggle into a communal endeavor, providing a structural safeguard for the individual's spiritual life. When an individual is fully embedded in a community of practitioners, their spiritual identity is no longer at the mercy of their own fluctuating moods. Srila Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, acted as the architect of this community structure, specifically designed to protect the practitioner from returning to isolation. He was cautious about rapid growth that prioritized numbers over depth. He insisted that without rigorous training, the movement would become diluted and fail to provide real protection to its members. He used the analogy of boiling milk. Instead of adding water to increase volume, he wanted to boil the milk down until it became thick and sweet, ensuring that the devotee's knowledge and association were concentrated and resilient. This concentration of study and shared association creates a fortified perimeter around the practitioner, neutralizing the conditions that lead back to spiritual loneliness. The experience of the path changes once the weight of solitary effort is lifted. The constant anxiety of performing the practice gives way to the relief of being supported by a larger tradition. Devotion in the Bhakti tradition is measured by the degree of a person's humility. It is found in the willingness to acknowledge one's own limitations and lean entirely on a higher source. This shift from self-reliance to dependence changes the emotional tone of the practice. Instead of a tense battle of wills, chanting becomes an act of shelter-seeking. Relinquishing the need for individual control allows a sense of lightness to emerge. The mind stops looking inward at its own failures and begins to look outward toward the community and the divine, finding a sense of expansion that solitary effort can never produce. Admitting total selflessness acts as the primary catalyst, finally allowing the practice of bhakti to breathe and expand.